Okay, now next, the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era wars. Very importantly, what we see here is France becomes a different type of army, larger and more motivated than any army we've seen before. The French are motivated by this revolutionary morale and a sense of French nationalism. Unlike other states, in which there's people of different languages, for example in Austria, there is this sense of French nationalism and of fighting for this cause. And France also is able to defend itself against all its enemies because it has what's known as the levee and masse. And the levee and masse is basically the first draft or conscription in modern Europe. So whereas the wars of the 18th century are largely fought by these armies in their red coats, and if you watch the old movies like The Patriot, you'll look at them and you'll think how silly they were to just line up like that and get shot. The levee and masse means you're going to have this giant army of peasants and all these extremely motivated people fighting for the revolutionary values that gave them a bigger stake in society and made them, finally freed them from the oppression of the nobles, right? And so you're going to have this fervor and the mass quantities of troops that other countries haven't seen before. And so very importantly, these wars are key because of that sense of nationalism that will be motivating the French forces. Napoleon's able to take advantage of that. And so really the French are able to at first resist, defeat the Austrians, and later, of course, defeat the Austrians. They defeat the Austrians 4 times over the course of 3 decades, and then defeat the Prussians as well. And with the Treaty of Tilsit, they ally with Russia. They invade, obviously, Spain and Italy as well, and Napoleon reorganizes that. And so the end result of all that is basically France controls all of Europe, except Britain. The word controls too much. France, well, more or less controls, yeah. Basically, Austria and Prussia are defeated, so actually Prussia loses a lot of territory, and they have to be part of the continental system of Napoleon, which is the system of controlling the economy to try to starve Britain by cutting off British trade with the continent. And Russia is now allied with him as well. This, of course, ends in 1812, and then as a result of the horrific invasion of Russia in 1812, the Russian army, or the French army, begins to fall apart. And the result is that all these countries that were defeated by France decide that this is an opportunity to go against them again. And so a coalition, there's 4 different coalitions that come about during this conflict, but basically every single one of those coalitions is some combination of England, Austria, Prussia, and Russia. And the grand coalition at the end is England, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, all allied against France. And they're able to defeat Napoleon in 1814, and when he makes his big comeback in the 100 days, they defeat him again at Waterloo in 1815.
Why does Russia break the Treaty of Tilsit?
Well, they don't like to be part of the continental system.
Okay.
And there's other issues, tensions between Napoleon, who's this sort of liberal monarch, and Alexander, who's this more, he's Christian, and there's just this, there's tensions between them.
Was Napoleon Christian?
Well, Napoleon is this new, he's a child of the Enlightenment and of the French Revolution. Remember, he signs the Concordat with the Catholic Church, which allows Catholicism once again, or which basically reunifies the Catholic Church in France from the official one that had been allowed in the underground refractory clergy. But he doesn't, he himself is not very religious. Okay. Now, in the aftermath of this, the Congress of Vienna creates this long period of peace, right? Instead of having wars between countries, we have revolutions within countries. And those revolutions are inspired by liberal ideas and nationalist ideas that are causing these uprisings. For example, in Italy, there's uprisings in 1830. In Belgium, there's an uprising against the Dutch who control them. There's an uprising in Poland in 1830 that's inspired by liberal and nationalist ideas. And of course, most famously, the 1848 uprisings or revolutions. 1848 revolutions in France and in Austria and in Germany and the Italian states. Okay? And so instead of having wars between states, we've got problems, internal issues and uprisings. So the next big war actually between states is the Crimean conflict, the Crimean War in 1853 to 1856. So you don't need to remember those dates, just know it's sort of right in the middle of the 1800s. That's a good 30 years after the Napoleonic Wars end. And also, no, I'm sorry, it's not 40 years, right? Math. 40 years. And also the Crimean conflict is not nearly on the scale of those earlier issues. And that's just, it's rather silly, right? It's basically Russia versus England, France, and the Ottomans. And the question is, you basically, well, the Ottomans are the sick man of Europe, and who's going to have influence over these areas, especially the important areas around Constantinople, right? The Dardanelles Strait, and the Balkans, this area in which there's many Slavs. But it's strategically important, and Austria has a large influence there, and so many people are fearful of increased Russian influence in this Ottoman territory. So the Russians are defeated in the Crimean conflict.